Stefan Bobner. Is it? Do you pronounce your name Stefan or Stefan?
I pronounce it Stefan.
Stefan. It's yeah, okay.
And you might be familiar with the Germanic pronunciation.
It's a Hungarian pronunciation taken by the Germans. Sure.
I'm sorry.
I mean,
I'm not that familiar with linguistics, but I call bullshit on that one.
That's because you're not that familiar with linguistics. But we can always.
ST is pronounced only in Hungary as ish.
Esh in general is pronounced how you write SCH. Yeah,
and that's an Hungarian thing.
I think so, because every other language has pronounce it as S.
So, and why would the Germans steal it from the Hungarians?
Because it's awesome.
I call it bullshit.
Because it's a snake, so it's sh. I don't know where you see the logic in that.
Well prepared, I guess.
I know. It's a.
No, I say Stefan, but like if somebody in France or Stefan, it's fine with me.
I know it's fine, but well, you know.
I'm not those people like, oh, you mispronounced my name. I'm so offended.
No, but I often ask this first question to everybody because this is, you know. Especially, well, your culture is not that exotic to me because, well, I was born in the neighborhood. But it's I often had people coming from India. I had no idea how to pronounce their names, or Portugal, where you have like Z's are pronounced as th, and it's like. You better pronounce your name because I'm gonna fuck it up, and you know I'm an asshole, but not to that extent that I'm going to make fun of your name. So Stefan Bobner. Yeah. It's well, welcome to the lair of the Minotaur.
It looks like a lair. Thanks for having me.
The Devil's Workshop podcast.
Please don't sacrifice me after.
Well, we'll talk about that later. This is why my garage is prepared for. So
this is for the stolen HD.
yes.
No, thanks for having me.
Well, I'm very glad to have you. It's. You know, I watched a lot of Joe Rogan podcasts, and I was like, we could do this in Europe. It would be so much fun. That one thing that he doesn't do very well. Well, I think two things. He opens his mouth about music, and I'm just dead because he knows nothing about. Well, he's not a musician, and he doesn't speak any other languages. So you know, it helps. How many accents do you have? And your French is very good. Your English is very good. The Austrian, I think. Well, you're probably somewhat good at it.
Well, it's my mother tongue.
Yeah, so yeah, you have an oversight on cultures that are very interesting to me. So,
well, thank you.
Well, that's why you're here. So, and because you built something that's interesting to us. So, how would you say if you had to have a I almost said Declaration of Independence, but that's not what I wanted. If you had to describe yourself in like a couple of sentences, what would you say? What would you say you do?
What I do?
What you do? What are you about? Come on.
What I'm about? Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Yes, exactly. Where are your faults?
Dead. No. So yes, I was born and raised in Austria, but then I studied in Vienna for a couple of years because in Vienna we still had this was before the Bologna system with bachelor and master. So now it was like a magister.
Well, we are pretty much the same age, so yeah.
You know that.
Yeah.
What meant like nowadays universities become like a school. So in 3 years you finish your bachelor's degree and then master's and then you go to work.
Exactly.
Well, in the Germanic space, it was not uncommon to meet somebody who's 30 and still studying because this was this kind of humanitarian humanist approach to you study because you want to learn blah blah blah. So I fucked around with like theater, film, and media studies for 6 years.
Maybe we should talk about movies now because I'm way better at that. But
that's a funny thing. Like this kind of every time, I don't know whether you agree with, but every time you move on in your life or with your life, a part of you is left behind, or melodramatic people would say dies. So like I have lost an interest completely in film and movies. So I was interested. So if you now tell me like who was the last Sundance winner or what is the best film?
Oh, I don't follow it to that extent. No.
I have done it. Last time in the cinema I was like a couple of months ago. So this is kind of something I don't engage with anymore. Not momentarily. So I didn't.
You don't even follow what's popular or what's actually good quality though? Not interested.
I mean, I don't know why it was and what happened, because I always loved movies and I think I still like them. But I think that's the interesting question is, when you do something, when there's people say like, oh, don't make your hobby as a profession. Don't become something.
Yeah, I disregarded that completely and fuck my life.
What would you say? Is it true? Because people then say, like, if you love doing something, it should be your hobby. But if you do it like to earn money, then it becomes a routine, and you might hate.
I don't think I should be an example to follow, because in some regard I have failed my career. So, but I always, whenever I'm working on post-production, whenever I'm working on music, whenever I'm working with people who are inspirational for me, and I have the opportunity to actually do that pretty often. Then it's a lot of fun. When it starts to be about trying to pay your bills, now that sucks, because then you have to do shit that you would have never done, and the problem is that it's like sacrificing your girlfriend to your best friend. It's like, it's still my best friend, but I really don't want him to live with her.
I love your analogies.
Well, but it's kind of like
hello, SOS Freud.
So it's not so, but I still
but you get what I mean. Like if you...
I do, but it's just I don't know how to answer to that, because it's to me. I'm happy that I have done what I have done, but I'm 34 now, and it starts to crawl up on me that it's I should have had maybe more success, especially financially, because my friends who actually did something big outside of music or outside of production, they start to become really big, and they start to have families with multiple children or sports cars or shit like that, and it's like I'm not envious, or I'm not jealous. I'm not the kind of person, but and it looks good on paper. It's just I know that even in the next 10 years, I'm probably not gonna be there, because I'm rather doing shit that makes sense to me than just sacrifice my life in order to have money. So I guess that's my answer to that. It's like you have to be able. I mean, the question you're essentially asking is, as far as I can understand, is how do you define success? So I define yes, because if you define success by earning as much money and wealth and essentially power in our society as is possible, then it will fulfill you, and you shouldn't follow your dreams or anything, because that's what's going to satisfy you. But I'm not satisfied by money whatsoever. I honestly don't care. So having 100,000 views on YouTube, that's what satisfies me.
This is not what I'm asking. I was asking whether you make your hobby, if you make your hobby as a profession, is that bad for you? Because then you lose your love for your hobby, and it becomes a tedious job. That was it's linked to success, of course, but it's because if then you have to. I think that people sometimes, if they have to do something, they become less interested. So if it's in a hobby, you'd like to build trains, for instance, but then if you have to do it, then here's my problem. I don't
have only one hobby, so I have turned one of them. Well, it started as a hobby, and then it became something much more profound, because it seems like I had some talent in it. Yeah, santé, and but I never regretted a second of it. But it's an own baggage of problems. So I wouldn't say you shouldn't follow your dreams, but you should accept it that maybe it's not going to be as satisfying financially as you might imagine it. That's the only thing that
to go into arts, you have to, at least the first couple of years, you have to make financial sacrifice. But I don't regret my cinema studies either. I met really brilliant people, and we had this kind of amazing thing which is called we were part of the Kino movement, and the movement was born in Montreal. And it was like amateur filmmakers who said, okay, we didn't go to fancy film schools, and we don't have a huge budget. We want to do films, so let's do it right now. And so you have every part of the world, you have Kino cells. Some are more successful than others. And it becomes in once a year, every cell has the opportunity to organize what they call a Kino Cabaret. Which is basically filmmaking either in sessions of 24, 36 or 72 hours. And the idea is from really somebody stands up, I have an idea, I want to do a film about this and that. I need 2 actresses, 1 actor, blah, 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 blah. They shoot it, they edit it. And usually these kind of events are in one adapted space, which is called the Kino Lab. So normally 24/7, you have people there who sleep there, who edit there, who drink beer, who do other stuff. So it becomes like a 1 week happening and something like this. And we had this once in Vienna, we had this 100 guests invited from Israel, from all around the world. It was really an amazing experience to see creative people who really I have 50 euros and now I shoot an amazing looking movie with nothing, but I'm so passionate. And then people taught each other, and then because if you sat in his Kino Lab and you didn't know how to cut, then next to you somebody would know, and then hey, can you help me? And then this was mutual help. So really cherished that. But then after when I was moving to Paris to study political science, then I've completely not true, because then it was kind of ego stuff like, oh, now I'm in Paris, so I have to have an abonnement for the Cinémathèque Française, of course. So I had this movie pass, and I sat there, and then it started slowly, because like when you're studying film, you're obliged, especially when you're young, because you want to feel better than the other idiots who watched Fast and the Furious.
Yeah.
You wanted to watch Godard, because Godard is very good. And I hated him because it's so tedious to sit for hours and hours of films that don't make sense. But when you're 24 and go, I study film, you don't understand it, Godard is perfect, blah, blah, blah. And so I went to the Cinémathèque Française a lot, and then I started, because like so many movies was like, oh yeah, they were outdated. When I say Hitchcock is the master of suspense, and it was perhaps at the time, but now we're used to faster cuts, to other type of suspense. And if you watch a Hitchcock movie now, it's a...
Well, it's a different dynamic.
Exactly.
For sure.
And so in Cinémathèque, and I sat there and I was like, okay, I have to like this, because this is like, the Cahiers du Cinéma says it's a good movie. And I started to hate it. And I think this kind of, that brings us back to the question, because it was some sort of my hobby, but then perhaps I want to make a living out of it. So I forced myself to watch all these kind of Godard, Nouvelle Vague, who don't make sense to me. And then just a couple of years ago, I stopped. And now if you ask me, hey, favorite movie you've seen lately, I would say it's Parasite. This came out last year.
I haven't seen it, I think.
So if you want to talk about movies, I would like, of course we can, but I'm not the best person to do so.
Well,
I guess.
but you must understand then what it means to have to compose a scene, how to okay, well, let's go back just one step. Parasite, I'll have to check that out. You know that there's a movement exactly like that, like the Nuit Blanche de 48 heures de cinéma, which is taken in every, and I have taken part on it a couple of years ago. I played a policeman. Completely, yeah, you can imagine with my face. That's the thing is, we have shot the Absurdity cover the day before, so that was the very first time I have shaved my head, and I shaved everything off of it because well, I don't think I have the CD here. But on the cover, you have the singer being beaten down and being on his knees in the middle of the screen, and there are pretty much faceless figures all around him, looking at him in a smoking.
Sure, it was not gay porn.
No, it wasn't. I wasn't involved in gay porn. So we don't know what the future holds, to be honest. But well,
you have to pay the bills, man.
Well, yeah, the bills had to be paid, and you know, it's the porn experience was bad, but you know, not eating is worse. so I
You're eating something, but I'm.
Oh no. Even when I was in porn, I worked on the good side of the camera where you don't see me. I was behind. So
yeah, that's true. You really worked.
Yeah. I had Dorsal and the Golden Gate .hu, which is a Hungarian site. Yeah, I worked for both of those. Post-production audio. So it's I was just listening to 7 hours a day, and it was a tryout for a weekend, and I didn't have a soul left by Monday, and I was like, this does not work.
By one weekend, yeah. That's...
Oh yeah, well, they have given me one task. They were like, yeah, this is a DVD. The editing has to follow the sound, so you have to cut it short, and then there are standards to apply it. And this was back when you didn't have software that did this for you. So I just did my job, but you have to listen to almost everything, because what you don't know, and very often people don't notice because they don't have compression in their audio. But if I put a hard enough compression on the audio that's recorded, when it's one camcorder, for example, you can hear instructions from behind, because every single microphone captures everything, but it's on a different level. And if you raise the level high enough, you can hear it. It's like more ass into the picture, and that it's not something that you would notice. But then my job was to cut those down, and then so. And I didn't have a soul left afterwards. I often tell the story that they have invited me to filming in Paris. And that was an interesting experience.
Are you talking about this kind of cinema Nuit Blanche or porn?
No, the porn.
Okay.
The Nuit Blanche, I have met here, my good friend Leslie was, I don't know why she was interested in cinema all the way, but we had this subject given at the beginning of this contest, and well, I'm in the film. I'll show it to you on YouTube afterwards. It's very funny. We have tried, and I composed a bit of music for it, and became very good friends with the people who were involved in our group. But I also understood then we didn't win, obviously. We weren't bad, but we didn't win. We wanted something too complex for that you can produce really in 24 hours. And it was a great learning curve. But I think you might enjoy this kind of scenery or this kind of people, because it was a lot of fun. It's the same kind of artists that we are. It's just their craft is different. So and it's well, I think that time it was in August. I think it was in 2014, 2015, maybe in 2015, summer of 2015, and I haven't really known what's happening around those circles since, but I would love to go back.
As I said, like I'm not closed off this world, but like this is something I don't engage with anymore, not because of grievance or something, just like
you're not interested.
No,
I think
I'm not interested. So, but also I don't, as you said, I don't miss this experience. But now I'm a different kind of person. And then to come back to what you asked me before, I started in Paris, political science. With a minor in energy studies, and then I moved to Lebanon, and then I moved back to Paris, and then I moved to UK, to Oxford.
Okay.
We're always working in the research in the think tank world on energy/climate change issues, and now I'm like here freelancing for the same institute which I was working for in Oxford on climate change issues. So this is my professional side, but like I was always interested in comedy, and I think like so many comics. I started my first open mic because of this false idea, because everybody told me like, oh, you're so fun at parties. And then, oh, I must be fun on stage as well. And then I went on stage and every 7 people in the audience, no. So, you know it now, and you know it for a long time in music. And I don't know whether music and stand-up comedy is comparable with the sensation you get on stage, but there's no better feeling than people laughing at your jokes, and you tell a joke, then a wave of laughter comes back. So I got a hook on that, and like because research is not a very well paid profession, and you're on and off jobs a lot. So at some point, and I started. So
you're doing research with your minor. Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't know, and honestly, we talked about it briefly. But
it's like my master's in international relations, and little by little I veered into climate change from a political science perspective. So I do a lot of stuff on governance. I work on bioeconomy, energy transitions.
Okay.
For instance, because you can do the maths in Excel. But tell that to a Polish miner who still have like 100,000 people work in coal mines in Poland, for instance. And mathematically doesn't make sense because solar energy is much cheaper now. But tell this to these miners, you need a social science perspective as well. So I'm doing that. I'm working a little bit on renewable energy, bioeconomy pathways, EU climate change policies. It's like, pardon my language, intellectual wanking.
Well, yeah, but it's tanks, you know? I think, yeah, in a sense, but it's weird how you talk about it, because to me, this is the single most important thing currently. This is, if we are not solving this, then the humanity dies in the next 100 years, and that's it.
I would agree. It's very true. But you're like, I think in Europe, most people are like you. But I've never lived in the States, but go to the States, the discussion would become notably about, but don't make sense, and this kind of stuff. So but as I tell in my stand-up, like we don't pay people to cool the planet down. We pay the people to heat it up, because like if you're like a consultant in a fancy consulting company and advise a Shell and BP, for instance, you can make much more money than working for a think tank on climate change issues.
Okay.
So that's but given the fact it's always like on and off jobs, especially in the early career, because I went to the job market after the financial crisis in 2012. Like I am. So you send out like 100 CVs and one answer comes back and like, no, thank you. So then in the back of my mind, I was always like, because I had a creative, I don't know how we call it in English, a creative side, so to speak. because I studied cinema, and I always said, like, okay, in the back of my head, 5% was, oh, fuck it all. I don't want to jump hoops anymore. I don't want to send my CVs because you don't want to read anyways. Fuck it all. I become a comic. So I Googled, in Paris, I was living back then, and I Googled stand-up English because at the time I still spoke not as good French as I do now. And I'm still, to this day, I'm funnier in English than in French because I'm doing stand-up here in Strasbourg in English. And in French, in English, it's decent. In French, I suck balls.
Well, it's going to come aroround. So it's fine.
The learning curve is different.
Like it's always
so when I Googled stand-up English, and actually, I don't know whether he's a friend, but acquaintance of mine, who is now quite famous, is Sebastian Marx. He had this kind of open mic nights. And I just wrote him, hey, can I come? And sure, it's open mic, go. And I think I brought my friends, and they laughed out of politeness. But there was like 7 people in the audience, and the joke. And you're like, well, in partners, that was much better.
Not bombing out of politeness. Now that's something I haven't seen yet.
No, and the same friends, when I see them, they still live in Paris. When I see them and I tell them the story, they're like, oh no, you are not that bad. And I'm like, thank you very much, but I was. And then once you get hooked up on this kind of feeling, and I met like more stand-up comics in Paris, and you just discover Paris is such an international city. I mean, 2.6 million people just intramuros, like in the city center.
Yeah.
And there's always international people there, either Erasmus, exchange, working there. So there is an audience for stand-up comedy. That's why it comes and goes as well. But at the heydays, nowadays, before the coronavirus, I think there were at least like 1 English-speaking show, and I'm including open mic nights per weekday, which is huge for a non-English speaking city, right? So you could really, and then start to know people, and hey, it's actually quite cool, even though like 80% of stand-up comics, and including myself, are fucked up people, because they're weird, because why would you do that otherwise? So then I started to
that's not for debate, but we'll talk.
I got into it, and then I stopped when I was moving to the UK. I stopped there because in Oxford there was only 1 guy organizing this thing, and now I'm at the other end of this, the other end of the deal. I know as an organizer you can't please everybody, but when I was moving to Oxford, I was even like annoyed with them because like, why don't you want to put me on your nights? I wrote you like last week and you didn't want to put me on, and write to me next month because my list is already full. So I didn't understand what it meant to organize and you can't please everybody, because normally it's more demand from the comic side. So you always end up with long lists. Then, hey, can I come? And then sometimes you have to make choices. Sometimes you forget to write somebody, and then people get annoyed.
They take it seriously because they are artists.
So I was there. I stopped completely, and then when I moved back to Paris, I was working there for half a year, and my partner is based in Strasbourg. Then I moved here to Strasbourg, and then I started doing English-speaking comedy here. Where I founded the first English-speaking comedy night here in Strasbourg. And for the first time I was organizing because I knew that Strasbourg is quite international. Yeah. You have like 3 institutions here. So I had a feeling that there was a demand. And for the first night, we had like people standing in the staircases and stuff like this.
Ooh.
So really, because it was the first thing going on there, and everybody, that's nice. And then, of course, because the newcomer and learning by doing, we started to organize stuff. We have now friends who help us, which is quite cool. And we did it before the coronavirus quite regularly, 2 times a month. Bring people from the region, from other countries. But I would also like to build a local scene here, because for people who are coming from abroad, either they're filthy rich like Luxembourgians and they don't care about money, or you at least have to pay the train tickets and the accommodation, which means you have to have at least 30, 40 people in the audience. And it would be much more preferable if you have like 1 headliner who comes from abroad, but local comics doing like 10 or 15 minutes, because then you divide ticket splits, but they don't need to make so much money back because they live here and they're perhaps just happy to perform. So this is, long story short, this is how I started stand-up and doing Strasbourg, founding the Strasbourg English-speaking comedy scene, so to speak, in 2019.
That's how we met. So it's,
Exactly.
Because I was looking into getting into something new, and it was like, stand-up comedy is my thing. That's gonna be my next new thing. I think you know why I laughed so hard on the inside when you said it's like they laughed out of politeness. But I think that was my first on-stage performance doing stand-up. Also, like looking back at it, coming Yeah, it's not that much of a strange feeling. Like my mother was there when I was first on stage when I was 17 with the bass guitar. I have
music.
Music, of course. And we sucked balls. It was horrifying. We had one song where in the middle we didn't know how to continue.
Oh really?
Oh yeah, it was horrifying. It was the worst thing. But I had my bass teacher who I had on the podcast a year ago, a very good friend of mine, came to show support and just took the microphone of the singer. Was like, I'm very proud of Matt and stuff like that. So it kept me going. And so I know that eventually it's gonna come if you push the right amount of energy to it. Now you don't make it very easy on us for open micers, because it's like you have 20 people, more with 30, 40 people in the audience. If you're lucky, there's a very slim chance that your jokes are going to land if you are doing some nasty shit. That's for sure. And I would love to do some.
So would you think it's better for a smaller crowd or a much bigger crowd?
How would I know? I mean, I just start. Musically, in music, I enjoy both.
Because you mentioned the crowd size now. And
yeah. But I don't know. But for stand up, how would I know? I just did my second one very recently, and I saw you guys a couple of times, and that's all my experience of stand up live. All I've heard is that the more audience you have, the bigger chance you have that it's going to land with somebody, and laughter is contagious. But otherwise, let's not pretend that I know what I'm talking about, because with music it's different. Because
you said we make it hard on the open micers, and I was wondering whether you would prefer as an open micer, as a newcomer, to perform for 5 to 10 people or to 60.
Can it be 10,000? Because then
of course.
I meant that.
I will ask the mayor. Hey, I have 7 second-timer comics. One worked in porn.
This is not usually what women love about me. But when I say that it was behind the camera and I wouldn't ever go in front of it, they usually say, like, you got to pay bills, and it's still not as bad.
No, but I think for open micers it would. I think there's little difference between open micers and professions in this sense, that I think everybody would prefer a little larger audience, because I think you're completely right. When you have 100 people, at least somebody is tickled by your humor and by your jokes. Yeah, and
then it makes 5 other people laugh at the worst shit that you have ever done. That's still better than 0 out of 20.
And I think I think like the critical mass is like to have like 15 to 20 people. Then you can have a comedy show. Below that, it's very difficult, because then, we had 2 open mics already before, because, as I said, I wanted to start a scene and then to give people a chance. And there was like 6 or 5 people.
I know we talked about this, but how long has it been going on for now?
So, we do the Strafunkel. It's called Strafunkel English Comedy in Strasbourg.
I'll put it in the description, and then we will link it.
So we start in 2019 in March. We had a summer break.
Oh God. I could have joined the day you opened this whole thing.
It's quite young, but actually it's a group effort, and I think it's because people were so dry and there was no demand. That's why, but it was quite successful. So we sold out almost every show. I mean, it's a small basement, but still.
Well, you have to start somewhere, and I think it's a good basement for such a thing. So it's And
it feels. I mean, I didn't have a chance to ask Sebastian Marx, because he was the most famous guy who came. Whether he was shocked, like, oh my God, this is like beyond me, because it's like a small dodgy basement, or was he like, oh cool, that's like how stand up supposed to be.
Look, after 15 years I would be happy performing there as a musician with certain acts, so I think it's fine. I know it's a good circumstance.
I like the basement. There has been some hiccups with the hicks and ups and downs with the people, but the locals they're really nice people. So they support us and they give us the basement, and so it's been quite cool. It was 2019, and we have like this kind of different kind of concepts. So we have, like, for example, if touring comics, and there are some in Europe, which I'm myself doing as an organizer, is learning by doing this for a year now. But I wasn't aware there. I know whether you would call them many, but like there are a few, let's say a dozen more comics who are based all around Europe, and they do small tours. So they would go on the road for 3 months and work themselves from I don't know, Vienna to
3
Munich.
months. That's not small. That's not a small tour.
I don't know, like like one guy who I really enjoy because it's my type of humor. He's hilarious, funny. Is Jack Holmes, and he's based in a British guy, but he's based in Vienna. Okay. And I think he tours like for 3 months or something like this.
That's not bad.
In fall and in the spring. And so, for example, if they are in the region, then I tell them, listen, I have these dates booked. The venue is booked. Are you interested? And so they would come and do a one-man show, which means roughly between 40 and 60 minutes.
No.
And depending on whether I find somebody or whether I have somebody who is willing to perform, we have like opening acts. Normally, I'm doing the hosting, and then we have newcomers who, for example, do like 5 to 10 minutes. There's one format we have, so to speak. Then we have lineup shows where there is like everybody does at least 10 minutes, and then the headliner who comes on last does 20-25 minutes. This has been I think it's the best selling concept, because I think when you are from the audience perspective, when you come to a comedy show and you see only one head on the poster, like if his or her humor is not for me, I don't want to pay 10 or 12 euros. I don't want to come. But when you see like 4 heads or 5 faces on the poster, it's like, oh, if one is not funny, at least I have other 4 people who could be funny. So I think from the demand side, the audience really enjoys having like 4 to 5 comics. And then because some people like newcomers contacted me, or because I said like I wanted to have a local scene where I can just like every week we could have a small event. Then we do open mics, and open mics really the principle. I don't know whether everybody who will join and listen into this podcast, all the 3 people, if they know what an open mic is, you can come. I give you 5 to 10 minutes. And then you just do, I mean, it has to be jokes. Well, try to be funny.
Well, it would be better for the outcome.
And then we have the stage and just like do your thing. And some really surprising, because we did this like 4 times now. And like sometimes was it like, oh, you don't understand the concept of a joke. Not you, but like there was
no, I know. It's just you had that. It's
and then we had people like who like really bombed the first time, and of course it was because like there was almost nobody in the audience for the open mic, and they were like insecure and did like some dodgy, this kind of basic dodgy fucked shit, pee caca. And then like they did like more open mics in the region, and then they came back and they were really good. It's really interesting to see that some people like the first impression can be deceiving, I would say. So we have different formats, and it has been going on for a year now, and we're starting the fall season in September. Let's see how it develops, especially with COVID, because
everything is uncertain. So
exactly, so that's what we do.
Do you want another beer?
I'm fine for the moment, thank you.
Okay, well you'll let me know, or well. You know where the kitchen is. It's sure. I've been told that bombing is an insanely good way to develop your skills. Yeah, and I'm kind of the first night when I wasn't that successul, but I think it helped me a lot to understand, and also to be able to ask for help for the first time, because I came to you to just discuss how exactly the structure should be done about this, because I really had no idea. I don't mean to dwell into this, but do you remember what was the hardest you bombed? I'm really just interested in that. Because I love your act, and it's funny in general, and you have a very good flow. So to me it's borderline unimaginable that you
stop it.
Well, yeah.
No. Like there's. So first of all, I'm agreeing with you, but like there's I know where they can see. There's one meme on the internet which says stand up is like this. It looks like I don't know.
Your drawing from last time, actually.
Oh, you have it?
Yes. Well, I put away everything, so it's. Okay.
Oh no, it's like this actually.
Oh, it's even.
so you start with like in the newcomer, and then normally the first nights, I mean, like people will laugh out of politeness, or if the host does a good job, for instance, and as I tried as well to say that, oh, somebody's here for the first time, then the audience they're not mean necessarily. If you're mean to the audience, they're mean back to you. And of course, I'm not talking about America where there's like drunk people on Friday nights. Apparently Friday nights are the worst in America. I have no idea, but like in
America, like that's a homogenic thing. It's like, yeah, no, I don't know.
But like like I try to be nice to my audience, and my audience is quite nice to the comics. And if you say like, oh, listen, this guy comes for the first time, or this gal comes for the first time, please be nice. People are nice, and they will pay special attention. And even if the joke is not that good, people will laugh. And then you start like, oh, I'm comedy king. I'm the new Louis C.K. And then you do the second side like, woo! And this kind of ups and downs it's funnily it never stops, because sometimes, as you say, sometimes you don't meet your audience in the sense like you are into, I don't know, European Union humor, and the audience wants to hear dick jokes, for instance, or
that baby jokes,
around, or that baby joke. I think nobody wants to hear that baby jokes, and if you want, you should seek help. But you get what I'm saying. But like bombing is I think it's. I mean, there's this stupid, but it's somehow true. This kind of American idea of in every action. There's so many action movies, and there's one scene even with Sylvester Stallone. I don't know what the movie is, where he does like a 5 minutes monologue, and the bottom line is it doesn't matter how much you get knocked down, but you have to stand up once more.
If it's not Rocky, then I will be surprised.
and there's even I use it to motivate myself, even though it's so American, so capitalist under quotation marks. It's an advertisement by Michael Jordan. It's a brilliant ad. It's for Nike, I guess. So you see Michael Jordan going into the back of the arena, like the back door, like where the cleaning people go, and he's like in a trench coat and thing, and there's like bass playing music, slow music, bluesy, and then he says like in my career I have missed 700, 250 shots, and he greets the janitor, he goes away. 17 times I was entrusted a game-winning shot, and I missed. Then he goes for the door, and the door slowly closes after him. And he says, in my career, I failed over and over and over again in my life. This is why I succeed. Door closed, then Nike. And this is brilliant, because it's so cheesy and it's so done to death, but it's exactly right.
Yeah.
Because if you bombed, it's just a shitty feeling. You go home, oh, nobody loves me. But if you go up again and say like, okay, I try to be better, that's actually how you progress and how you learn. Because of course, the first time, like, oh, my friends laughed, I must be funny, my mom was there. But and so to answer your question, I have two examples. One was not my fault, I say, because we were in right over there, the Molodoi, I guess, this kind of
but Molodoi is just beside us, sure. But
this kind of alternative music venue, and there was first it was like this kind of multi-purpose festival, or this kind of one day of many activities, cultural activities, and the first was an improv. French love improv theater. There was an improv troupe, and they improvised theater, and people were sitting, and then afterwards a band should come on, but the band had like to get their drum kits in place, blah blah blah. People were incentivized to get a drink in the break. And so while like the stage was prepared and the benches were put away, somebody told a friend of mine, Tanguy, hey, you're a comic, don't you want to do like animation? Like do you want to do like 15 minutes of your material? And so Tanguy called me, Cédric and Simon. And given the fact that I don't know whether you agree, it's somewhat an alternative place. Organization is not their best part. Nobody. It
depends on who you deal with, but okay.
But nobody informed either the audience or the musicians. So it was like 100 people in the audience, and people are setting up the drum kit in the back. And in the front, people are drinking, because after the improv match, they've concentrated on the improv match, and now they was talking to their friends. And the first time, the first guy went on stage, and he's from these 4 people. He always speaks like this, even in the real world. He weighs like, he's like 170 tall and weighs like 60 kilograms or 50 or something, really thin, with this kind of voice. And he was a newcomer as well. So he went on stage, so I'm heading home. And even I was standing off the stage, I couldn't understand him. Nobody talked to the audience. Like, then he did his set, went off stage, Cedric came on, and nobody listened. And nobody listened to me, and I tried to say, hey, people, please, now there is a comedy show going on. But of course, nobody was giving a shit, because they didn't pay anything. They wanted to drink beer. So it was like nobody listened to us. It was like horrible. It was bombing.
Yeah, but you bombed because the circumstances were shit. Exactly. It's not because your craft was shit. It's because you didn't have a host. to prepare you for the whole
That's
event.
why I said this is like not necessarily my fault. The other one was completely my fault. It was a little bit as well because my girlfriend at the time said like, yes, there were people talking in the background as well. This was in Oxford in a college night.
Those are hard.
Though, in the States, apparently they don't do colleges anymore because they're super woke and don't get jokes anymore.
That's also what I heard.
In the UK, I don't know, but it was in the break room or in like every college has like this kind of bar in Oxford where they can drink booze for £2 or something like this. And it's a social gathering, facilitated social gathering. And it was quite huge. I can't remember the college. So there were people talking in the back, but not that many because the host was doing a good job. The Listen comedy show, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. But I was pretty new. It was 2015. And I didn't realize that you have to practice jokes. And in order to do a good set, you have to have a routine. You have to practice it. You can do it like if you wake you up in 2 a.m, you can do your routine. I wrote jokes like the day before or something like this. And I practiced them a little bit. And I went there and I talked too fast. Then there was my accent. Then I was talking about skiing, for instance, which is not a common topic in the UK where the highest elevation is like 600 meters or something like this.
Yeah, motorcycling would have been a better topic, sure.
And it was like horrible. It was like 10 minutes and every joke was like nothing. And it was like in the first row there was like people sitting like and they're looking at me like maybe the next one is funny. and one guy was really nice. He was like doing like come on, you can do it. And I couldn't. And then I was starting to make fun of the British, and this didn't fly either. Because I was not doing it like, yes, I said it. I was doing it like, oh, the British people are really weird. And it was horrible experience. And maybe subconsciously, that's why I stopped doing stand-up in the UK. So that was completely my fault.
You never tried the Fringe? That would have been your stage.
I was there as
now.
a spectator, and I was asking a comic friend of mine, and he said it's totally worth it.
Yeah.
However, there are other comics say it isn't because I think you have to pay quite a lot of money. Because I think there are some free venues, but they're taken. I think they're for 2022. There are no more.
Oh yeah, that's months in advance, if not years. It's like Wacken. If you want to free, that's a year
would be years in advance, and then of course you can pay for your venue, but it's like if you want to do it a month, then you have to be certain that you track a number of visitors. And in fact, it's so huge now. I mean, they told me Edinburgh doubles in inhabitants.
Oh yeah,
so it's like 1.6 million then, and I was there as a spectator. It was crazy. And then you compete for attention with, I think, every day there's like 70, 80 shows.
Yeah, it's almost impossible.
So I've never done it, and I have no idea whether it would be a good idea. Some people say it's not worth the money and not worth the hassle because
probably not the money, but the hassle. I think it would work, especially for you, because I think you have the rhythm that they would understand and they would appreciate there. But well, yeah, that's again. I'm not sure I'm the competent person to talk about it.
Next year perhaps, but
I think that's again, if you want to plan for something, that's going to be 2012, 22. Yeah, because
my time machine.
Well, or either that. So yeah, it's because like Wacken this year, I'm not sure if they're going to hold it actually because it's in Germany. So I think it should be now, but I think it's
in August normally.
I think so. I don't remember anymore because that's my one heartache. I had a bucket list of shit that I wanted to do with music when I started taking music seriously. I was 17-year-old. In my head, I composed a list of what I wanted to do. It's like I want to compose an album by myself. I want to shoot videos for it. I want to be appreciated by my peers, especially the professional scenes. I want to collaborate with most of the musicians that I appreciate, and that's something I continue to do. And also on the top of my list was I want to play at Wacken. Because that was that's the one thing I never achieved. And unfortunately, by now I could achieve it, but it's not the same thing as it was in the 2000s. It's so yeah. That's the only thing about that. One of my best friends, Nico. Unfortunately, I never invite him to the stand-up nights because his English sucks. And I love the guy to death, but well, he's not. He's French. So let's just say that. And but he played at Wacken, and this was one of the things that I started to call my attention because I didn't meet anybody before him well, actually I did, but I didn't meet anybody from my age before him who played, and they have won a contest here in France, and they were sent out as a prize for the contest. And he was like, yeah, look, I played at, at 4 or 6 in the afternoon. It's not that much fun, You want to play at 8 o'clock or at 10.
But that's, as you say, it's a bucket list, right? And I mean, and
that's the one thing. And we went to the same competition, and I was sure that we would succeed with another band of mine that I'm refusing to talk about anymore on the air because they don't want any more attention from me. and we didn't win. Which was a big heartache. So, but then I let it go because I know that if you pay, I could be on the Wacken main stage, I guess, if I paid something like 7,000 to 10,000 euros for a 45-minute spot at any stage. So if it's a question of money, then I'm not that interested because it's like getting a Ferrari. It's like if I put my mind to it, I'm sure I could, but do I really want that baggage of a problem? So yeah, it just stopped, and I was like, yeah, it's time for me to do something.
Best investment, a car, second only to the motorcycle.
Oh yes. Oh dude, I don't. This is something I don't understand about you. How were you able to give it up riding motorcycles? Because you have a license. This would have been my first thing.
I never started. That was like.
What do you mean?
I am one of this is funny. Comedy comes from personal weirdness and. Oh,
really?
I passed my driver's license. I don't know what is that European standard? Is it standardization A and B?
Might be. I'm not sure what you're
like. I'm like a normal car up to 7 people, I guess, and a motorcycle, but a real motorcycle, like you do.
Oh, that doesn't exist anymore in Europe. I can guarantee you that. No, because if you want to have a motorcycle license, it's a definitely different.
But I had like a different test and a different like practical test. So I went out with like some 125 or something with the headphone. Like, so now you turn to the right place because he was Austrian, of course. And I turned left. And so I did that, but I never owned a motorcycle. And I was just like, because it was a package deal, and I thought, and I enjoyed. And I think even now, I passed my driver's license in 2003, and since then I've driven 3 times in 2003. So if you now put me into a car and say like, listen, you have to drive to, I don't know, Place Kléber. If you don't succeed in 5 minutes, the world will blow up. I wouldn't succeed because I like these kind of pedals, and I hate driving.
Oh yeah, well, if you don't enjoy engines, then I understand why.
I think I might be, and now you will get a heart attack. This is stupid, but I think. Be able to still drive a motorcycle because I'm on my bike a lot, and of course it's bigger and it's more dangerous, but I think I appreciate the feeling and I like it and I know it, whereas when I'm in the car I'm like, I'm reliant on several other idiots who don't know how to drive.
Well, on the bike also way more than in anything else, because if you crash then you're dead.
But I think, of course, if you crash into a car and then the people, like a driver or the people in the front, can be hurt as well, but normally you kill yourself. That's why kids, I don't condone drunk thing, but that's always like in Paris, especially. I often took the vélo, drunk, because it was like 4 a.m. and I think, okay, of course, if you drive drunk at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and you run over a kid, the kid might get hurt. Very few kids at 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. in Paris, and if I get hurt, I usually would only hurt myself.
They are all kidnapped, that's for sure. by 1 o'clock in the morning, so it's fine.
Everything which is more motorized, and I never possessed, and I never owned a scooter or never owned a motorbike, so that's why I never gave it up. I just never had it. And driving, some people retain or they get pleasure out of driving, like going on the autobahn. It's 200 miles per hour.
I am one of those people.
Good for you, idiot.
Yeah. I'm joking. No, it's not the speed. I enjoy the acceleration feeling of it, and then you understand how I became one with my machine. But it's literally it's
the machine.
But it's similar. It's a similar feeling to playing an instrument to me. Okay. I know you play a bit, and it's when you master an instrument, then it becomes an extension of your body, and it's pretty much the same feeling as being on stage for me, playing bass, because I play a lot of notes and I play very fast, and I rehearsed practically all my life to be technically adept at any given situation that I can. I'm not a big funk guy, but in any other situation, I can pretty much play whatever they put in front of me. Now, bass is probably the least difficult instrument to get started on. because you are playing one note at a time and a maximum of two. If you are a god, if you know at piano, if you just only play it one note at a time, that's not what gets you chicks, right? So, but it's a similar feeling. It's like once you master your instrument, it becomes an extension of you, and you don't have to think about like it's language. You don't have to think about what you want to say. It just comes out in the right, and driving became the same to me. Now I started driving cars, and I was always interested in motorcycles, and my ex-associate and also my the friends around me, they all have driven motorcycles. And I was like, I want to be that guy. I want to be Arthur, who created the podcast with me. He's on a motorcycle since, I don't know, 16 or 17 or even earlier. And he's exactly the kind of metal drummer that you would imagine with the chopper-like motorcycle. Exactly the same kind of guy that you thought I would be. But no, he's the real deal. And I was like, I met him shortly after I came to France, and I saw him on the bike. I was like, I want that. I want that. And so that's how it came to be. And since I sat on a motorcycle, driving a car is a chore. Because it's like, nothing's happening. It's slow. It's at 50 kilometers an hour on a motorcycle. I'm a beginner, right? 50 kilometers on a motorcycle is just so fast. It feels so fast compared to a car. And 100 kilometers on a motorcycle, now you start to feel it. And 160 kilometers an hour, now that's definitely something you'll never feel in a car unless you're a Formula One driver. So that's what I enjoy about it. But I started driving late, so I'm careful.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm also stupid. Because that's why I'm respecting the learning curve. That's why the small motorcycle, also because I'm broke ass and a cheap person, but it's a 125 is fine. And that's what I would suggest is if you ever want to come back to motorcycle, 50cc first, and then just get used to the speed, because it's the same logic as a bicycle, but it's not the same thing at all.
Yeah, of course not.
At all. Obviously, it's not the same thing. So and it's. A mistake is very costly, very costly. On the other hand, it doesn't cost a lot of money for transportation, and you can do, with my 125, you can do 480 kilometers with one tank of gas, which cost me, I don't know, 15 euros. So it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Well. And also, I always thought that chicks are going to dig it, and they are going to come towards me like, where did you get it? No, guys come. Guys and young ones. I had several times. I stopped at a red light. 12-year-olds cross in front of me, and they're like, of course I do it because I'm a show off. Yes, it's ridiculous. So
you're a crowd pleaser.
Well, I'm an artist. Well, I mean, yes and no. This is something that we should talk about. Where do you draw the line? How much is your act about you, and how much your act is about pleasing the people in front of you? I think it's always an interesting question to ask artists.
Well, I think in comedy they always say you have to be authentic, so it should be 100% about you.
And we did talk about that, and I do agree with that.
But you have to embellish, of course, and you exaggerate, and some details you leave out. But if I come on stage and I say, I'm really good with women because I'm so beautiful with my thick, long hair, then everybody's like, no, that doesn't compute, right? Error 404.
I think you could pull it off.
But I think the audience knows instinctively when you are bullshitting them or not, in a sense that, and I think it's the feeling every time, and then of course you have to draw this line for yourself, because either you are somebody who either enjoys bombing or says, I don't give a shit about what other people think. This is my artistry and I do it like this, and the feedback I'm getting, I don't care. It's just my thing I want to do, which is fine. However, you have to be this personality who can take shit for like every time you go on stage. And I know comics who haven't found their audience yet or are really shit. And they go on stage and do the same thing over and over again. And then don't get any laughs. And to many people I talk after the show, like, oh, this guy or this one, they weren't any good. And then you can be this guy and say, oh, listen, this is my artistry. Fuck everybody else. I talk about
whatever the fuck
plastic
I want.
balls, dead babies. It's my thing. But I think everybody wants to be liked a little bit, or there's, as I told you, there's no better feeling than if you're on stage as a musician and people like singing your songs or clapping your.
Oh God, yeah.
It's a powerful feeling. It comes back to you, and you want this. It's like a drug.
Sure.
So then you have to compromise, because if you talk only about dead babies or plastic bottles, nobody laughs, then you won't get this feeling. So my line is like, I try not to do overly tacky material, but I have it in there because this is my life. I am a Germanic person in France. I sometimes don't understand French people, not linguistically, but like, why
culturally
you would do that. This is my head explodes. So I do that. I make fun of my accent sometimes, but it's like 5 minutes of a longer like my show. I have now a 1 hour show roughly, and not everything is gold, but like still, and there's a part of it. But I wouldn't do a whole show about, the French smoke a lot and go on strike a lot. Ha ha ha. Germanic people wear socks and sandals. That's good for like 1 minute, and it gets laughs. And then when you're a long time, I've been on stage like for like semi-professionally now for 2 or 3 years, you get a feeling of what works, and it depends also on the context. And so I have it has to be to answer your question, it has to be interesting for me. That's why I talk about climate change, for instance. Yeah. Never gets big laughs, but I think comedy still has a function of holding a mirror up to society and criticize something which is not right. I think this is comedy should. I mean, you can do only observational stuff like Seinfeld. Have you ever realized that people? You can do that, but I find comedy the most interesting when it puts the finger where the wound is. So that's why I use climate change. Never gets the most laughs get stupid stuff like I'm Germanic people, French people, and I try to do that because then when I'm still an entertainer, right? And we did like in French. I mean, I suck in French, but we did like some shows in the small villages around Strasbourg. And I knew if I talk about climate change, either like, oh, fuck off, hippie, or they don't know what I'm talking about. So they've heard of Germans or Austrian people. So there I do this, and I'm doing this because I was paid that night. And if you're paid, I still think that you're an entertainer. And if people pay you money, at least you should make them laugh.
Did you have anything from your act that you thrown out, even though that you thought it would be good enough, but it was too out for the kind of audience that you want to speak to?
I've not come because I'm writing new material at the moment. But I want to rewrite all of my climate change material, for instance, because there's one bit which gets quite some laughs, but the other usually don't, because it was and I sent it to a friend of mine, like a fellow comedian, and he said like, oh, it shows that this were probably the jokes you wrote like a couple of years ago. I said, yeah, that's true. So they're not that good. But what far out there, I don't know. I mean, some things make me laugh, but I wouldn't consider my humor to be that out there anyways. So I like the classics.
No, it's very clean, I find. And I think it's intentional in some sense. Well, I mean, I wanted to ask you how intentional it is, because you're not going for that low-hanging fruit. And to be honest, ever since I started coming to the open mics and checking out, but none of you, except for one of Chris's jokes, which I'm not going to talk about, but it's all about semen, and I think you will know. Except for that, I don't think it's going for the low-hanging fruit. Really, anybody.
Well, you can, for instance, Louis C.K., for instance, does dirty humor and disgusting humor, but he does it well, because I think until now he what's the past participle of thread a line? He throwed a line. We threaded. He went on a line, and he never fell off in my opinion. But even I've seen, like, now he has his special on YouTube. But I've seen him in Paris when he was still ostracized by many people.
Really?
And he was working on... Yeah, because he went out with Blanche Gardin, who is a French comic. You don't know her? Oh, no. This is one of my... But given the fact I speak worse French than English, I don't get French humor at all.
Well, it's the same for me.
Every time I tune into Montreux, good, it's Swiss, but like Montreux Comedy Night, not funny at all.
It's francophone humor anyway, so yeah.
And I think like the only thing which I really appreciate is Les Inconnus. which is like in the 90s.
Yeah.
But they're quite Monty Python-esque, quite Saturday Night Live. So that's humor I understand. But like this French humor, something like, why is that funny? Why is it? And they're still a little bit behind. Like they still make jokes. Oh, women are like this. Oh, Arabs are like this. And, and so I don't get them. But she's really like Blanche Gardin. She has really like this kind of dry and very slow delivery, and she stands quite rigid on the mic. And she says like Louis C.K. type of shit, like anal sex and stuff like this. But she's like quite pretty and like always in a nice dress. And like, how can you dare speak like a woman? A woman should not do this kind of jokes, which I don't agree with. But this is some criticism leveled against her. But she's really, really funny. I like it, even though like I'm normally somebody who enjoys like ranty delivery, like Bill Burr. I'm myself do like high energy humor. You will never see me like, yeah, and then I went to the shops. Never. I'm always over the place, and I like this kind of delivery.
I think it works better.
She's really like a calm, awesome Blanche Gardin, and so and she went out with him for a couple of months. Mm-hmm. So what I think happened was that he came to visit her, and she called, I think, some Sebastian Marx, because she knew that he's doing the most famous English-speaking comedy nights in Paris. And listen, I have Louis C.K. Do you want to organize something? And so he organized something, and he posted in the Facebook group in Paris, Paris Green Room Comedy, something like this. Hey, Louis C.K. is coming, 25 euros. Are you interested? And I wrote, is that a joke? And no. And then nobody knew. And then it was like, I read about it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I was in the library working. At 8 p.m., like there was a theater, 300-seater, full of people.
I imagine so.
Word of mouth, blah, 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 blah. And then, of course, there was 4 local English-speaking comics who went on. And then he came out. And it was so good to see that even then he's still, I mean, we can discuss or like, let's park what he did. Don't discuss this. But joke-wise and comedy, and even writing-wise, like with Louis or Horace and Pete, he's one of the gods of stand-up comedy. Mm-hmm. But even him, like I was in, he did like 20, 25, 30 minutes. 50 of it was really like, I was ruffling, as the young people say, rolling on the floor laughing. 50 minutes were like, 50 minutes were like, you have to work on that. Okay. And there he said something like painting, I can't remember, but painting the dick of his friend with lipstick, so when he fucks his mom in the ass and something. It was just disgusting.
It's already a good premise. I love it.
You're a damaged person. I
am. Well, I'm doing metal music in my spare time. So what the fuck? Why
is that? To me personally, that's not funny.
Too much. Okay.
And when you mentioned younger comics, I think I was the same. The equivalent. It's automatically funny if you say fuck a lot. If you talk about sex, sperm, this kind of stuff. And I think this has been done so to death that it's not automatically funny anymore, especially if you don't have this kind of stage persona like Jim Jeffries, for example, Bill Burr, who say outrageous shit. But they can do it because they have delivery, they have this stage persona. Yes, I said it, deal with it, fuck you. And normally first-time comics, they're not like this, they're like, do you guys watch porn as well? Do you like anal? And if you're not confident on stage, the audience gets it, and then it becomes uncomfortable. And when it becomes uncomfortable, nobody laughs. Yeah, usually.
So it's the self-confidence that sells the whole thing in your understanding.
It's the self-confidence.
I wholeheartedly
every artist said, and this is like, and I think when you get older, I mean, when you're young, I mean, I was a young prick, especially for music. I was arrogant, like, I listen to the cool music, alternative music, like the bands you don't even know about. I
hated people like you when I was studying music. I gotta say it's.
But Dara O'Brien, the Irish comic, he has a bit, and I can't do it because I don't know what he said, but he's like, that is the stupidest arrogance. Is musical arrogance.
Absolutely.
The tunes which I like and make sense in my ear, they're bad tunes, and he does it like it's absurd.
Yeah.
Waves come in your ear, and these waves are not the good ones, but those waves, these are the good ones. And he is right, it's completely absurd, but when you're young, you're like, snobbish. But I think every artist, stand-up artist, has to make this decision. When do I sell out? What do I joke about? And how much do I give in to the crowd? Because a crowd pleaser is always like, I am fat, I am ugly, I am weird, and you're perfect. I try to keep it in mind, but usually I don't pay attention to it. I do still my thing, but I try... Because I think I've not yet acquired this kind of fuck it all attitude. So I try to steer clear from overly disgusting material. Controversially, it depends. But yeah,
what's the difference for you then? Controversial because I don't think disgusting is controversial, but I think you might understand something different under controversial than what I would understand.
Yes, for me, and this doesn't make sense when I'm thinking about it now.
It doesn't matter.
But like disgusting for me, it's quite linked to bodily functions.
For example, yeah,
shit, diarrhea, sperm, this kind of stuff.
Okay.
Controversial is for me more political.
Oh, okay.
So
that's one territory that I realized very fast that I don't want to enter, really. Because the problem is that it gets outdated very fucking fast. And musically also, that was one of my things that I always told every single band, that I'm not gonna be politically involved for the one reason that it ages horribly badly. 5 years from now, you won't be able to listen to it. The only band I ever know who pulled anything off that still stands to this day was Rage Against the Machine.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's the only thing that I can say.
Well, I think I would it's a trick, and I do it. I touch upon it, but it's just the same thing. It caters to it pertains to what I said before. I consider myself not having this kind of fuck it all attitude, and I handle bombing much better now. But in French, for instance, people tell me afterwards, "Oh, you were too nervous." It showed. In English, I think it doesn't show, and I can, if there is no laugh, it's still not a nice feeling, but I can deal with it. In French, I start like, "Oh shit, nobody laughs," and then I lose the thread. It's horrible. I think also this because like people today, they don't make. I think people are triggered in the sense that if they hear a combination of words, they don't think about anymore what do them words mean in context. They just need black, gay. It must be bad. And there's one video on YouTube. It is a comedian of Indian heritage who was called off or taken off stage by organizers from Columbia University. And he was scheduled to perform in an Asian empowerment night. And he had a brilliant joke. And gay black people, nobody would choose that, or that's why he knows that gay is not a choice, because there's black gay people and nobody would choose to be black when you're gay.
This wasn't very recent. I think I saw this performance. I'm not sure. Oh, yeah.
Namish. Joe Rogan has an interview. And the butt of the joke is that like society discriminates against gay people and black people who would choose voluntarily to be double disadvantaged. Brilliant joke.
Yes.
But I think the people has heard black, gay in the negative context. Oh, you can't talk about this.
You find that this is something that's present here in Europe also?
No, but it comes. It comes, I think.
This is what worries me. This is what scares the shit out of me. Because this is what I see also, is that to me, whatever happens to the United States currently, in this cultural sense, this whole cancel culture, that we don't have that here.
Yeah.
Is that we don't have problems with gay people or interracial people or transgender people. It's just like we don't really care. It's like I think there's of course there's a certain uneducated level of society.
There's still discrimination.
Of course. Well, in some sense, but I think some discrimination is also biological, which is very hard to overcome. And I'm not saying it's impossible and we shouldn't do anything against it, but I think it is. And I think Europe currently, as far as I can see into it, and when I mean Europe, I mean Western Europe, because not Eastern Europe. I think it handles it pretty well. So, and everybody tells me that, no, don't worry, it's coming. It's a 10 year of an age difference, and all the cancel culture is coming to Europe, and it scares the shit out of me because this is really not something that we need here.
But I have I don't know whether it's coming, or I would think so, because like with the internet, with social media, a trend back in our days, a trend would take like 10 years or something like this.
Sure.
Now it's much more instantaneous.
Sure.
And of course, it's what kind of medium. If you follow, if you read the Guardian or also left-wing newspapers in Western Europe, they would say like, oh, cancel culture culture is an invention of the alt-right.
No, it does exist.
The senator AOC, American senator, I don't know, Cortez AOC. The abbreviation is AOC. She's like, no, that's a myth, because it's only like powerful people are now can be held accountable, which I don't agree with. It's their cancel culture. There is evidence where people are like, you said something which I don't agree. I called your boss and you're fired now. Okay. This exists. Whether it will come to Europe, I think so, because we had Black Lives Matters demonstration in Vienna, for instance, here in Strasbourg.
Yeah, here in Strasbourg,
and
in the middle of the.
I would disagree slightly with you. Of course, transgender, gay people, minorities face discrimination, but I also agree with you that it's better to be a gay black transgender in Europe than the States, for instance. I would
currently it seems like Europe, it, because we didn't live in the States.
And I know, like, there was Gilets Jaunes protests, and the police were behaving like very abysmally and violently. I understand that, but to do like the equivalent of like, police and the police state is as bad as it is in the United States.
Well,
or Europe.
Look at it.
I don't agree with that.
Defund the police. That I don't think that reached really Europe, because it's like, I'm not sure if I understand it correctly, or I'm just blind to it, because I'm not watching French news as much as I'm looking at global or at European news in general more than anything else. Because but I think we understand that defunding the police is not gonna do anything good. It's like, if anything, it should be give them more resources so they could be more competent at the end, because that would be the idea.
That's the exact point.
It took them six weeks to get to this point, and it was a shocking experience to me watching. I mean, we were always told in my childhood, people who went to the States, they were like, woo, those people are the ones who made it. And last year I went to Cary. In North Carolina, and I met and I saw a couple of things, and my first initial thoughts from the United States, as much as I saw from it, because it wasn't a lot, but what I saw from it is this is not that different. Food is a bit different. People have guns. That was weird, because you don't see firearms here outside on the street, but it's like, I get it. It's a bit different, and the GPS is fucked up because you don't understand anything. It's like it tells you to stop in a number of yards, and I was like, "What the fuck is a yard?"
Left in 7 King's Elbows.
yeah. It's what the hell? It's like, but then again, I had friends from Australia coming, and they were like, "Can you drive? Because this is not the good side of the road for us." And I was like, "Yeah, I can." So it's manageable, and the food is all right, and the people were nice. But this was an educated environment where I went to very educated people who were on the top of the food chain in video games. It wasn't that different, but goddamn, I'm happy I didn't accept working in the United States right now, because seeing in a 1 year retrospect how they handled everything, it looks like they have so much of this minority that's so loud that it makes the whole thing a shit show. It's just so many people there. And it's just, in some sense, everybody thinks, economically speaking, that it's problematic for the European Union that we speak in every single country, or most of the countries speak different languages. We have different standards. We have some places have still different money and different cultural settings. And they have less of that there, because you can still speak English. It's a different dialect, maybe on the West Coast or on the East Coast, but it's still the same money. It's still the same. There are commonalities between their rules, among their rules, and I think it comes to our advantage right here, because I can't imagine people really going to the street defund the police. That's not going to happen in France. I really hope not.
That's I think that I did not engage that profoundly with this kind of movement and with this kind of their cause. But for instance, like in the US, they have cops in schools, and I think defund means just like divert funds, because the police is in the sense like most of the city budget I think goes to the police. Let's take a little bit from that. I mean, there's different kind of people. There's some people in the movement who are anarchists, perhaps. They're like, oh, defund means like abolish them. There's some people, no, take the funding and put it into better education, blah, 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 blah. So I can understand that. We don't have these problems as much in Europe. And that's why, and I was curious, and I didn't go to the protest, but I was curious.
Yeah.
I think, and I'm just leaning out, going out on a limb here. I think I would not be astounded if this kind of slogan, defund the police, would have appeared in Vienna or in France. And in France, or maybe it's perhaps because the police quite authoritarian and quite violent in France. But in Vienna, I mean, they're just incompetent, the police. But and it wouldn't be astounded if there was. I think there might have been this kind of a same hashtags, the same slogans, and that's what I mean. That's why I'm a little bit not afraid, but I think it's coming. However, I have not figured out how much of my own echo chamber amplifies what I'm seeing. So in my Twitter, I recently started to follow right of center tweeters and academics, for instance. And now my whole feed is full of this kind of, cancel culture. Here I have an example of a professor in Texas who got fired. And here is another example. But is it really is it representative? Does it happen like once every 7 months and it gets blown out of proportion? Is there really a cancel culture? I don't know yet. However, I think that people import trends quite easily. And especially because, as you say, America is still they have the best PR machine for the last 50 or 60 years. Because even if I dream, fuck it, I throw everything overboard and become a new person. I mean, my man, I'm riding down Route 66 in a motorcycle. You can't do it anymore because Route 66 is just like bits and pieces anymore. But even to say, and I know that America is a shit show. I know there's no universal health care. If you have a cancer, you either die or you are in debt, like housing market. Everything is crazy over there.
Yeah, it's a common meme, but Breaking Bad couldn't have happened in Europe.
Exactly.
And it's a good series, and I'm happy about that. But goddamn, it's so absurd.
Still, you have this kind of pull factor, and there's now China starts a little bit to become soft power, TikTok and this kind of stuff, But America is still this kind of the American dream, the American life, and I think Austria was on the other side of the curtain, but still it was not as advanced in the 70s or 80s like France or Germany, Western Germany, for instance. Mm-hmm. My mom, and she's never went to high school, for instance, but she had this myth, and she told me about, and America is the country of what, unmatched opportunities or something like that. Yes, well,
it is an opportunity, but it also the biggest fails.
Exactly, but we have still this myth, and this is America still has this kind of soft power that where do you go to start over a new life? Of course, you go to America. Even the fact you're completely right, it would be so much better in Europe because we have healthcare. You can be more free to do something than in the United States. Because I would go. And Rammstein got arrested because they had a dildo on their show because it was indecent laws or something.
Well, they didn't watch a lot of the show then because they have a lot of indecent things in it, and that's why I think it's fun.
And if you're an atheist or say you don't believe in God, you get deported or something. It's America. It's really weird. But Europe is, I think, because we have so many languages and so many cultures, we have this kind of difficult construction, this kind of and there are some young people, this kind of European federalist movement, for instance, they feel European and they try to construct this kind of, hey, we're all European, isn't that cool? But some in my mind, it's not the same thing. Even in my mind, to have lived and worked in Europe for such a long time, to go down Route 66 with my chopper and then Rosie at the diner serves me coffee, not the same thing. I go on my scooter in southern France, get insulted by a waiter. That's not the same thing, right?
It's so funny that you say that. A couple of years ago, I had friends, French friends from here. Well, not really friends, pals, I would say, who actually done that, who actually went to the States, and they were that was their dream to do. And this is somebody who really travels, as far as I can tell. Every single Instagram story or anything that I've seen from them, it's also a bassist, by the way. These cabs come from him. He was like, yeah, I would love to give it to somebody who actually uses them. So now they are in storage right here. but they went and it speaks volumes to me. But to be honest, the weird thing about how we think still of the United States is we still think about the United States as Tarantino has thought about it in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's it's idealized to a point where it doesn't make sense to me anymore. And in this year, more clearly than ever in my entire life, I realized I don't think I'll ever leave France. I might move to the south because I like more sun and I like to be closer to the water.
But what did your friend say who did this tour?
I don't think we have met afterwards because they had kids and everything. I just watched the pictures, and there were two horribly big motorcycles, and they did the whole tour, and I think they enjoyed it probably. But they are back in France. I mean, it's just not even a question.
But it's just that it bogs my mind how even like people who like know the shit that's going on still can be attracted to this kind of vision. I'm including myself.
Let's say that was in 2017 or something like that. So it's not none of the shit that we have lived through this year has been infatuated with that. I don't know.
But I think coming back to what you asked initially, I think you're right. We are a little bit more open-minded and less closed-minded here in Europe, and I think you can make.
But especially us, because we have traveled. Everybody I met who was close-minded never left their village or their city.
I'm talking about comedy, like what kind of jokes, cancel culture, this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, I don't think that really lands here.
There's still some French comics, especially, who seem, because stand-up is a much newer art form here than in the States. So like they didn't go through this kind of self-cleansing ritual. You can't tell, les Arabes font comme ça and les Blacks. But it's still humor.
Maybe.
You can do it intelligently, but like there's still humor going on, like this kind of stuff, which would not be thinkable in the States.
Yeah.
However, this kind of, as I said, like you're black, you have gay, it must be offensive and not thinking through. I think we are too smart, perhaps, here in Europe.
Oh, I wish that would be, and I think we are a bit more educated. I don't think we're much more smarter.
I still feel it a little bit. I have some jokes, and now I'm redoing them because I'm quite proud of them. But they might be edgy. But again, I'm not making fun of Syrian school children, for instance. I'm making fun of that we value animal lives here in Europe less than school children, for instance.
Okay.
But every time I did this kind of joke, I got like, ooh, or silence, because people are like, can we laugh about that? And if you think, can we laugh about that, that's fine. But don't be offended, because I'm not making fun of the Syrian school children dying. I'm making fun of that we white people in Europe are so much animal testing, but we don't give a fuck about millions of school children dying, for instance.
Has anybody ever came up to you after a show saying that? No, never happened?
And this is like, because I think like this is also like quite American to me, and like I never lived there. I went there when I was 12 and I can't remember, so it doesn't count. But if you watch these kind of discussions, other comics, American comics, you follow on Instagram, on YouTube, they are having this kind of, either I scream out or I come out the show and tell you what was wrong with your jokes.
Which is weird, because
that's an American thing as well.
Yeah. In Europe, we don't fucking do that. So I'm not going to Demon War here after the show and Bill sounded shit. You don't do that. It's like, next time I'm not coming if I didn't like it. It's
exactly.
as easy as that.
I think Europeans are a little bit more polite in that way. We are less in, I paid for it and now I want to do it exactly like, I want you to do it exactly like I paid for it.
I imagine it.
I imagine it.
It's just.
And I think like I try, as I said, mentioned before, or alluded to, I try to make it like a fun night for everybody. So that's why, I mean, you can talk pee, caca, penis, fuck, sperm joke, of course.
Could be funny for a lot of people. It's a lot of fun, but
at least, for example,
easy.
One comic made my audience uncomfortable, which I said, please make jokes about you, or make it about yourself, and not insulting or make audience uncomfortable.
But you can try, but if you are criticizing your audience, that's never going to work.
The point is that I don't think that my show would be like, there's less controversial stuff, so people would not come because there's not so much controversial stuff going on there. And audiences, at least the ones in Strasbourg, also in Paris, they're quite and in French they say faux cul, so they're nice, but also a little bit, what do you know what I mean? It's
false pretense, or
they don't tell it to your face. They would talk behind
your back.
False. They're false people, but they're not because they're mean, because they want to be nice. So every time there was one show where at least 3 comics were either very dodgy and very like sleazy.
Well, sleazy I like. That's fine.
I know. You're quite mono-interested.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. I am a bit of a dark. But I always wanted to be the dark prince, the demon on stage, and I don't think it changed with stand-up comedy.
But people had like an reaction, and everybody who came out, because we were standing there with a chapeau for like donations, everybody, so good show, very nice show, so professional. I've never had any negative feedback, and statistically, that is not possible. That not one show we sucked.
No,
we sucked a lot. Everybody sucked some point, but I think people don't do that here. Like, oh, you suck. It was like nice show.
And the next time they don't come if they didn't like it. Sure, because that's what I do with If they have treated us like assholes during the pandemic because the grocery here. And I was like, I'm not fucking coming back here. That's as easy as that. They wouldn't let us in, both my mother and me. And I was like, then we're not going to shop here. It's fine. And I'm not going back. Fuck off. It's like a bad decision. This is my protest. I'm not, now I'm talking about it on a podcast, so maybe even 10 people will hear it. But it's like, I don't care. It's like, that's my protest. And it doesn't have to be louder than that. It's just my choice. And it's a conscious choice on my end. So, and as an artist, but I asked you this question because as somebody who hosts and organizes the show, obviously what you want is please the people who come. There's no question about it. You want the money to come back that you invest in it, and or you want them to come back. But as a comic, so as far as I can tell, this is a controversial motivational spectrum that you have here. It's like it's immediately contradicting itself. It's like I want to please people because I organize the whole thing and a lot depends on it for the next 3 shows, let's say. But again, I'm an artist who has to be. So one of the reasons why I have a hard time organizing is exactly this, and why I appreciate it so much that you actually have done this for this first step. Because for the rest of it, I always wanted to help. This was, I found it so goddamn funny. I don't know if we should talk about this. I found it so goddamn funny the last time when your girlfriend was there and you told me like, we talked about Chris and there's this Hungarian guy coming. I laughed at it for like at least 2 days. I woke up in the middle of the night. I was like, this is how I come through. I know that's a part where I'm weird, but I would be also weirder organizing something like that from the get-go, and I just want to help. It's but
you raise an interesting point which I've never thought about that clearly, but I think you're completely right. I think there's two, like Faust, there are 2 souls in my breast, at least 3. My normal one, and the organizer, the MC, and the comic. However, for me, the MC and the comic are the Venn diagram is like quite overlapping because I'm not as attracted by dark or dodgy humor as you are. So you might feel compromised when you organize. You as a person would say, I have to be nice and smiley, but in my head, I want to do that baby jokes, for instance, which is not something, but I want to do. However, I agree with you. I'm much more conscious when I'm emceeing, when it's my show. And I want to make sure, because that's my Germanic soul, is like I want to make sure that it's not, it's for the venue, it's nicely done. So I don't come late. I don't show up. Oh, so who is on next? I want to have who's on next.
No, it should be proper.
So it should be properly organized. And as you say, I wanted people to come back. And if I have like 5 comics doing only that baby jokes to mothers perhaps in the audience, they won't come back. So it's completely right. However, perhaps your Venn diagram would be less overlapping because you have this dark shit you want to do as an artist. That's your artistic expression. And you can't do that. I'm fine with, especially hosting. I enjoy hosting magnificently because for me, it's quite easy because it comes easy for me to talk to people and to improvise. However, some people, and I understand them, they will criticize, hosting is not a real job because you don't write the jokes. It's not written out, so you just improvise.
I love when people come to you telling you that what you're doing, that's not a real job. I love it. I love it. That's my favorite thing. I love when they tell me, bassist, that's not a real instrument, or anything. It does. I love it. You're right. Don't do it.
Don't do it. Fuck off.
More money for me. I don't care.
But I think you're right in the sense that, like, I think for MCs or like for people organizing this stuff, there's more pressure, or at least because they want to satisfy their own artistry. They want to please the artists who will come, and they want to please the audience. So that's why I'm always like, yeah. And there are really some comics who are like, the problem is when they're disgusting under quotation marks and not funny. Because then it's a problem. It's awkward silence. Yeah. And that might be true, but never. We're not that big as a venue. No. There was not so much controversial material on there. That's why I never had somebody coming up to me, oh, this was a shitty joke. But we also get a lot of, I think, young people who are perhaps more open-minded, and many French people, and relatively few Americans. And I think Americans, like from Colombia, this kind of, when we talk about this cancel culture cliches, the cliche is this kind of uber liberal Ivy League students who do like gender studies and then are outraged by everything you do. we have fewer Americans. Normally we have people from all around the world, actually, who were this kind of controversy, being offended, cancel culture, not thinking and being offended right away because there was two words in a combination used. I think this is not there yet. So,
but you still think it's coming?
I think so. I mean, yeah, I think so. Because like with the social media, it all gets amplified. The echo chambers. Nobody talks to the other side anymore. So you spend only time like patting yourself on the shoulder, how woke you are, or how right wing you are.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I organized this, for example, last year. Is that because I like talking, and I know a lot of interesting people who think very differently from me. And when Joe Rogan explained what he does, he's like, I want to do fucking that. It's just I speak 2 more languages than you, and well, I am good at other things, and so let's bring that to the spectrum. Because exactly because of that, it's like one of the reasons was that I had a hard time deciding where to get my news, because obviously the news media and everything is going downhill very fast. It's changing just as rapidly as the music industry has in the last 15 to 20 years. And I think they are struggling. And so there's a lot of clickbait titles. There's a lot of clickbait articles. And there's a lot of the United States media influencing what generally we read or hear about. Climate change, for example, which and then I was like, yeah, how about we talk about certain subjects with competent people who know what the fuck they are talking about? Because if you're asking me about playing bass in a rock or a metal context, then I'm somewhat competent. But if you're talking about genetic diseases, let's bring in somebody who actually knows what the fuck they are talking about, because I can give you my opinion about it, but why would my opinion matter over somebody whose studies are actually this? And so that's exactly why but it's if cancel culture reaches us in Europe, then we are done. I think if it really reaches us and it gets embedded in our culture, then we have a problem that's bigger than almost anything else. Well, maybe not climate change, but almost anything else that comes to us culturally speaking. Because then one of the reasons I think we are both open-minded is because we have lived in other spots in the world, and so the more people you meet, the more you realize that the differences aren't that big. And generally, this is my understanding. Generally, everybody wants the same shit. Like we talked about last time. It's and okay, music is different, and clothes are different, and food is a bit different, and the climate is a bit different. But it's all in general, we just want to be around friends and be understood and tolerated and listened to and loved and so on and so forth. But I think the vast differences we have in a cultural sense in Europe helps us, because I do 1,000 kilometers in either way. This is going to be another culture that I'm going to be. I'm not sure that's exactly the same case for the States. As far as I saw, it's easier to just do 50 kilometers in one straight. If I do 50 kilometers in a good direction here, I'm not going to be able to speak French anymore, or English for that matter. And I think that helps us to better appreciate that, I love the German culture for a lot of reasons. I think you guys work better than we do, for example.
I think you're right. It's like, there's this one podcast which is really fascinating by Joe Rogan is, and I forgot his name. He is a black jazz musician, and he has a book about that, his experience. And he said he's very modest. He said indirectly, he is responsible for, I think, 120 people de-joining or leaving the Ku Klux Klan.
Oh, wow. I saw that one, but that was last year sometime. Fuck.
And he said he almost befriended some Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah, exactly. That's what he did.
Not only does it takes balls of magnificent magnitude to steal, also he decided to talk at least with people who maybe wanted to kill him.
Yeah. And
this is something, and I think they're like, let's say, I think there are 2 or 4 1% of the people who are really mean-spirited and really violent, like it's kind of skinheads and Nazis. If they see a black person, they will hit them. They exist. But even somebody who says racist shit, who might be racist, I think if you sit down with him, and if I'm from minority, or then they start to talk, then it happens what exactly you described. You say, yes, oh, we're not that different.
Yeah, after all,
there was one TV episode. It was on Austrian state television. They have always got some good documentaries, which was called, I think, Am Schauplatz, which means on the spot. Mm-hmm. And there was about racism or right-wing activities in Austrian HLMs. HLM is like Gemeindebau. It's like from socialist heritage, like building housing, affordable housing for larger lower class, working class people.
Yeah.
And you have this dude, and it's been so long I've seen it, so I might be exaggerating, but I think you have like this kind of Nazi memorabilia. Oof. Like this kind of flags and a steel helmet, and it's kind of foreigners. And the camera follows him to do meetings and do metal concerts. And then the last
has nothing to do with
the right wing, like this kind of Nazi metal concert. And the last scene, he has locked himself out of the apartment downstairs and then he calls the son or the janitor. And the janitor is called like Murat or Mohammed. He's Turkish. Mm-hmm. And then the reporter says to him like, but Murat, he's a Turkish person. How do you deal with that? But he's the Murat. He's a friend of mine. We the same. Because
exactly.
They're both working class people.
Because they know each other.
They've lived the same shit. And then it's and I think this is so. And this with this kind of bubbly. When you say which media to follow, this is dying out. This is dying out because we don't do the effort anymore. Structures, institutions, which used to bring us together. I'm an agnostic, but churches, for instance. Village festivals, which I hated because it was Homtata and it's kind of lederhosen Schlagermusik. But it fulfilled a function. The whole village would come together, and then you would sit next to somebody you might have a beef with, or you would sit next to someone who is foreign. But with drinking or like just talking, you would get to know people. Yeah. Churches fulfilled this function. Every Sunday you met everybody, and you didn't like the butcher son because he was an asshole, but you talked with him. Public transport brings people together, and this is dying away. It's slowly dying out. And now we only speak with people who condone and to amplify your own opinion. We are so woke. We are so right wing. We're so environmental friendly.
But you also speak to these people almost solely online. Which is, in my case, you know why it's interesting what you're saying to me. I'm not sure what I am. If we're about that, I'm definitely not religious. But believing in something and being affiliated with the church is a very different thing to me. But the one thing, one of my best friends who just moved back with his girlfriend, with his wife and child from Dubai. 7 years. They moved back to Hungary, and one of the best things that I have ever learned from him was exactly that when I met him, he was deeply religious, and the only thing I was envious about was
Can I get a beer? I'm just
of course. No,
yeah.
Was the community sense of the whole thing, especially that. They went to Dubai, and they were immediately enabled. They were allowed to join their own congregation, mm-hmm. and they were more or less helped by people. At least they were socially not that problematic as we are. And as far as I'm concerned, I function as somebody who's an atheist in a society. In a societal terms, also because I tend to follow what scientific research is doing, and I do believe in that more than man in the cloud, like that. But I think it presents us an immense problem. And I'm not sure how much of this we should share with the public. So if you feel uncomfortable about this later on, I'm going to cut this out. But the last time that we have talked, when we were going to eat together, I think one of the reasons why we have a hard time finding our own kind of people is exactly that, is that we miss believing in something common with the other people. Is that, and the more I loosen up on my understanding of how a theoretical God should be constructed, the easier time I find to connect with people for some reason. Here's another thing. I have been brought up in a family that's strictly atheistic, and the problem is that I started becoming a musician because I felt some kind of a community with my peers, and I wanted to share stuff, and there are a couple of exchanges in our human exchanges that we have a very hard time explaining on our level of understanding. Like I'm the kind of person, if you watch me long enough from 400 meters away, I will sense it. And how will you explain that? It's just, we just have this kind of connection on a dimension that we don't understand. I'm not saying there's a bearded guy up in the clouds, because that's ridiculous. But Jordan Peterson's understanding, for example, of what God might have been on several levels resonated a lot with me, because it's if it could be translated into what I could imagine myself becoming if I had eternal life, which I don't. So it's like just giving you the direction to be able to advance towards something and to have a goal. Like if you believe in self-improvement, essentially, then you believe in God, because I think that's what it should be. It's a person who talks to you and who responds to you, but it's not like somebody coming down and you can hear a voice in your ears. It's just when you're doing something wrong. Where the fuck does that come from? It's like it's hard to explain. Maybe there are underlying biological situations.
But for that would be like somebody like Christopher Hitchens, for instance, or Stephen Fry. Christopher Hitchens is he was a journalist mainly, but published books, and a militant atheist. He said Stephen Fry gave the example, bone cancer in children. How is that a benevolent God? And they both would say that morality does not necessarily flow from religion. Religion has been misused, of course, but even in the Bible, there is like things like, please, strangers knock at my door, please rape my daughter.
It's ridiculous. We don't want to.
I would be careful. However, I agree. Somehow we do. I'm not the example I was using before. I was not making a case for religion. However, my personal journey was that when I was 24, like every 24-year-old left winger who studies film, I was an atheist, militant one, like the church, burn down churches, and this kind of not that militant, but like this kind of
no, you were in Scandinavia,
but no taxes, and then like why is a priest on television, this kind of stuff. And that's why I said now I consider myself an agnostic now, but I don't care about religion. I don't care because I don't need it in my life. However, I see it with my mother, who is religious light, but it gives her comfort, and who am I to take away somebody's comfort?
Sure.
It's kind of life goal, something to work towards. So I'm not making the case for religion, but I'm not wanting to disband it completely. I'm just saying this was one of the institutions which facilitated the exchange of thoughts, which has broken away.
Yes. But I think it's a problematic proposition not to have that anymore. I'm not saying that we couldn't replace it with anything better. It's just a hard job.
No, we should talk with
exactly
that. We should have that.
The problem with, you have pointed it out perfectly. That's the main issue I see with morality, because my past. I have been around scientists, and one of the biggest issues science has is that it disregards results. It doesn't care whether humanity survives, but we should. And the problem of working towards a purely reductionist system that tries to figure out how the world functions does not include the fact that we should survive. And if understanding one rule would mean that humanity gets extinct in the matter, science doesn't care. So in a purely scientific way, please don't die. It's just a purely scientific way is not going to give you one aspect of how human life is lived. Is like the hardest question that I've ever was able to ask myself. And this is not my idea, but I'm just propagating it, is that how should I conduct myself in my environment in order to further it in a way that it feels useful and I feel fulfilled? Why science doesn't care about that. And I do believe in science, and I think it's a very useful tool, and I think it should be pursued, and I think we should
Well, I would disagree. So everything which is environmental scientists, they care about that the planet doesn't heat up too much, because we could, I think, the humanity, I'm a social scientist, so I'm not a hard scientist.
Well, isn't that more engineering then? Because you want a certain outcome.
No, but they say like we could survive on 4 degrees or 6 degrees plus, we can survive. I mean, there will be no Netherlands, for instance, or like, I don't know, skiing slopes.
Fortunately, we don't live there, so who cares?
But humanity will adapt to that. But they say like, is that worth it? And there is
exactly.
There is this, and especially philosophy. If you, I mean, we had an interesting discussion with a colleague of a friend of my girlfriend.
No.
And she's quite only like neuroscience, medicine, and physics is a science. The other, whereas it's bullshit. But in German, we call everything Wissenschaft. Philosophy is a Wissenschaft, is science.
All right.
So, and these kind of people, I think they do concern themselves with where are we going? What is morality? Do we explode in 100 years, something like this? So science is not this kind of only beakers, and we don't care about reality out there. We're just interested in results.
I meant the ideology behind it.
There are some scientists, but like many are not, and they're quite vocal. That's also why they get then misused and misinterpreted. But I get where it's coming from. But there's more to science than just like being in a lab and doing Bunsen burners and petri dishes. So there's... but I'm getting what you're coming from. But to me, I also believe very, very much in science, and that's what I said.
But it's hard not to. We have phones. It fucking works. It's not because of God.
But I think that's and again, everything I say about America again is based on prejudice and because I never lived there. But there are people like who believe that the Earth is 6,000 years old, and they have iPhones and they have like internet. And I think that the human brain, and this is called cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
Cognitive dissonance is I think you might be familiar. It's like you can be a socialist but live in a penthouse. You can believe the world is 6,000 years old but have an iPhone, and these could logically not go together, but your mind can stand.
Yeah, but there's an underlying biological reason why you have that very often, is that people tend to believe in things that gets them in a group setting. And that's what I see with flat earthers, for example. When you see a documentary about them, the last time I saw some guy was so adamant on trying to prove that the Earth is flat that they have bought a 20,000 euro instrument that would measure the curvature of the Earth, and if it come up with a certain result, then they would have a hard time proving that it's not flat because it comes from curvature, and the guy was there. And when it comes to conversation recorded behind his back, then you can hear that's like, we have a trouble because the machine came up with this and we have paid for this and I don't know how to present it. When in front of camera, he was like, no, the instrument is clearly fucked and everything. He wants to belong in a group. And I think this is one of our problems, is that we have 10, if not 100,000-year-old instincts that try to get us into group setting, and we have a consciousness that isn't the isn't the strongest surface in our brain understanding. Like, if you think your consciousness is your hardest, then try to just put a lens in your eye and just try to tell yourself that it's gonna be fine, and it's still like this at the end, because instincts are hard to overcome, and it takes an immense amount of practice. But as far as I can tell, it's pretty much that. It's that a lot of times what I see is that people feel separated and isolated, and in order to just belong somewhere, they start reciting stupid shit. And I think a lot of what I saw from very racist environments were that. And I see, because it's easier to say that, yeah, the Jews are the example, or this is because of those brown people. It's easier to say that, yeah, like, that's why I love Bill Burr, because he said like 85% of you has to go. Now, I don't think they do, but it's a good joke, because it's not just brown people.
It's back to comedy.
It's every fucking body, and we are well aware of that. So yeah. I think.
But why is it that you choose? Why is that belonging has become? Yes, I mean, I think in my mind,
but wasn't it
kind of communal?
Wasn't it one of the biggest topics of our discussion last time? It's like we have a hard time finding friends, because everybody we have hold dear on, they want to do families and they are in the bubble, and it's exactly the same thing. It's like, I think we have an instinctive wish to belong in a group of peers, even if it's not that very big.
But I think you're I don't disagree with you, and I think what it comes to, that's, and I don't want to sound like my own grandfather, but like this kind of internet, and then the Joe Rogan and when he interviews Bill Maher, he's like, the internet has facilitated this kind of you find your peers, so you don't have to go out anymore. You said you want to belong to a group. I agree with that, but like 20 or 30 years ago, you didn't have a choice. In your hometown, even in big cities, you met like 20 people in your study, for instance, when you're studying, and you were stuck with those. Nowadays, you go on the internet, and Bill Maher has this example, like, I like building trains while a hooker shits on my body. And you find these kind of people who say, like, oh, I'm like you. And now you be like, and you want to belong to the flat earthers. You want to belong, but the flat earther, they couldn't exist like 20 years ago, because nobody, but now stupid people, or like people who believe in what Donald Trump says, alternative facts. I call them stupid because there is no alternative facts. But they believe something, and they find people who believe in the same shit, and they then can satisfy this group feeling.
Yeah, but why we are alone? Why do I feel isolated? I think the problem is for a certain... Because
we don't do that. But I think, I have, again, only prejudice, but I think the flat earther, he or she doesn't feel alone. He has a family. He goes to these kind of meetings, like a country club or something like this. Because do you have a group with, perhaps it's music, perhaps for me it's stand-up comedy, but even for instance, when I go on vacation, I switch off my social media, and all the fellow comics can go F themselves, because I don't care. There might be people who are like so into comedy, I have to be reachable because something might go wrong and I have to book this person. So I don't have this one family, so to speak, where I invest so much time. I invest time in small ventures, but every family, I'm a distant cousin. I'm never the father or the blood relative. I'm like a distant cousin. Do you have this kind of family, like a flat earther would have his peers? Or like
the reason why I seeked out you guys was that because I have with my breakup I lost half of my social contacts and I started feeling alone. Yeah. So that was one of the reasons. Mm-hmm. And my musicians friend, they I know a couple of people here, but most of them are back in Hungary or elsewhere, and they started family. So but it's just but. There's a difference between these two, because I wouldn't be able to be a part of something that I wouldn't entirely trust to be good for at least myself. And that's my problem of the flat earthers. But the difference between those people who be
good at it, it's just you have to believe in it. But anyway, sorry.
Exactly, but the problem with the flat earther thing is that at some point, if your education is high enough, and I think mine was high enough to understand that it is coming from some kind of a peer pressure or a group belonging initiative. And I don't want to belong to anything that I wouldn't believe. I mean, if let's say you decide to stop organizing for stand-up comedy and everything falls, I still believe in stand-up comedy as a thing, and I still believe in helping people in artistry, and I also understand that it's a fairly complicated thing to be an artist, because you have a lot of underlying biological contradictions that you have to sort out in order to be able to be true yourself and also produce something that would be useful for anybody who's in your audience. So these are complicated questions. I believe in sorting that out. I wanted to enlarge the crowd of people who's around me, and I wanted to be able to improve in something, and I wanted to be able to again perform on stage, which is ongoing on other levels also. But I wanted to be outside of my comfort zone, and this was pretty much the perfect thing for me. But I wouldn't have done it if anybody was like, yeah, but you gotta be, you gotta believe that there's a spaghetti monster above the clouds. That's not gonna happen. It's like I'm immediately out. I think the problem is that as far as I can tell, the problem is the lack of education. That's exactly what I see. And the other problem that collides with that, especially for our generation, is that you have less and less certainty where to get your information from. So you're unsure whether you're supporting the good cause or not, or you decide to get into a bubble of a family, which you're perfectly entitled to. And I think most of us should do that, because otherwise the human race is not going to continue. But those of us who aren't, we're in trouble, because we have a hard time. We have all these tools, and I still feel that we have a hard time connecting with each other sometimes. It's because by your 30s, you are very aware of your differences with other people. And to you, I'm always going to be a metalhead, even though I have played in several jazz bands, or I have played classical music.
But that's also the image you want to convey.
Partially it's conscious, but partially it's unconscious, and it's not something that I want to be known for. It's just, this is what I feel comfortable with, but it doesn't mean that we couldn't find a common platform. And I think, as far as I see my elderly or my that makes me think of one of my exes. So partially what I see is that the older you get, you have a harder time to connect, because you are more and more aware of the differences you have with other people.
And you're fed up with this. You develop a no shit attitude, right? Because you're fed up with wanting to please everybody.
And most of the people who aren't in couples are full of shit. That's why they aren't in couples. That's what I see also around me. And I might be in an echo chamber about that, because I see a certain type of people.
But I think the most interesting, but I think we can't discuss this. This is a thing for another podcast. Would be why is it that we are technically capable of finding people like us who are in the most weirdest shit imaginable? We can do it on the internet, but why at the same time do we feel so alone or disconnected? There's this kind of dichotomy between, yes, I can find somebody who builds trains and shits on me, and I feel alone in my apartment or something.
I don't think that this requires a lot of discussion. I think it's very easy to answer that in a certain philosophical sense, which I love to do. I think it takes a lot of courage to go up to people and get rejected. And most of the people I meet are so afraid of that they wouldn't do it unless they are paid at work. And so that's where they meet people, at work. And I have the courage to go up to you and just be rejected. I don't care. It's like, well, it's your loss. I know, because I didn't want anything bad. But it took some time until you, for example, started trusting me enough so that we could have, just.
Who says
talk.
I'm trusting you?
Well, but it's well in your prerogative, and I think you're right doing so. But it's like.
So this kind of feeling that we are alone, this is something which I think has even been shown in studies, that people don't engage face to face, they engage with this kind of two thumbs and with Twitter, but not face to face. And this might be a problem because there is perhaps less solidarity or something.
Have you tried getting off of social media for any time of any span of time ever since it became our lives?
As I said, when I'm on vacation, I try, but it's difficult.
You miss it?
Would you? No. Okay. Would you count, for instance, we've been traveling in the Southeast Asian region a lot, and then restaurants or hotels who are, especially restaurants who are not on booking, they have Facebook pages. So I would use Facebook for this type of stuff. But normally when I'm on vacation, a longer vacation, for a week at least, I don't.
Is it a conscious decision? Why yes. Are you off? But why? Does it make you anxious?
I think social media and Facebook is not. There's a reason why it's now valued at $7 billion or something. Because the whole business model is catered to. You have to be online. They invent stuff. They invent notifications. And I think you can be the smartest person, the most well-educated person. They have figured it out with the help of many, many consultants and many, many research that there are some things that trigger. It's not in a sense I'm offended, but notifications, for instance. I on my phone, I'm using my private and my professional email address are the same. When I was working as an employee and not a freelancer, I had a different professional email account and a private account, and I didn't upload my professional email account on my phone. So every time in the UK when I left office, I was not reachable unless by my office colleagues on the phone. Because I wanted to avoid this kind of message ding pops up, and now you might say, but you have to have the willpower to not look or the willpower to ignore that. You don't have it, because when you see that pop bing, You check it, and then when somebody, your colleague says, "Oh, urgent," I found myself writing professional emails in the metro when I was living in Paris, or even on the bike, just like, "Can't call you now. Let's talk on Monday." And I would consider myself, I'm a child of my generation, so I'm more social media savvy than my brother, for instance, who is 15 years my senior. So this is, I understand that, but I'm not the guy who like sits there. For example, I hate, and please people, I hate so much people who use their phones when they talk to you, when you have dinner or when you have beer, and then you have like this, like, yeah.
It's weird to me.
Kill them all.
I don't think I hate it, but it's weird to me.
But I guess they disappear. They don't interact with you anymore. So I'm not this one, but still I don't. When I see a notification, I want to click on it. And I think the business model of Facebook, WhatsApp, is exactly catered to that. Plus, there is a second layer of clickbait. Look at this guy does stupid shit. And the more you have this kind of click, the more you stay on that. And the more you stay on social media, the more you lose time. I mean, I think we lose so much time on this kind of social media apps without doing anything productive, because there are some comics who now are on TikTok, for instance, and they use it to get a large audience and they upload nice videos. But even organizing stand-up comedy, so much is just like bureaucratic things which could be avoided by simply sending one longer email with like bullet points and tell me what you want. But you spend so much time writing, like you have like this one, that one. I think that's the business model is based on that. You have to spend much time on Facebook because that's when they make money. And this is the reason, and that's why I take a conscious decision on because when I'm going on holidays, I don't want to be that who sits like with the Wi-Fi in some cafe in Italy or in Bangkok, just like because some guy wanted to ask me whether we have open mics, and fuck that, no.
Yeah.
So it's a conscious decision.
Okay. Well, yeah. I understand that it's a conscious decision because it's a burden in some sense. At least it is to me, and I think that's what you are explaining. It's like. It splits your attention in half for very little reward. The problem is that when you upload something, when you you organize a night, I don't know how hard of a time you have to watch hourly or bi-hourly. How many people have already bought the tickets for it, and look at the numbers and yeah.
That's such a good example.
Yes, I know, because if I upload something, I want to see the views, I want to see the analytics immediately, and that's exactly where they get you in. But it is the worst kind of drug I have ever seen, because you are giving up a very small. I'm not sure if it's dopamine or serotonin, but a dopamine boost. For such a small thing, and it doesn't last a second. 15 seconds later, I'm still interested if there's another one. Yeah. Cocaine doesn't do that to you. Cocaine, you take a hit, you're fine for the next 5 minutes, not 10 seconds. It's ridiculous. And so what I'm doing is I'm shutting it down all. I'm shutting it all down. And I'm gradually shutting it down since my breakup, and I'm working on shutting it down entirely, and I feel better and better ever since. I speak with a very few amounts of people who deserve my time at any given moment. If they at 3 o'clock in the morning they need me, I'm there because they were there when I needed them. But it's a very select few people, and the rest they can wait 24 hours for a reply if it comes to that.
Like it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago.
Oh yeah, when we didn't have the phones.
No, I remember. Hey, let's meet at the Weikart-Uhr. I was born in Graz. If somebody in Graz shows Weikart-Uhr and he or she's over 20, there was a jewelry shop. And they had a clock. It was at Hauptplatz, and we had like we called on like fixed phones, like brr, brr.
Yes.
Hi, Miss Muller, is Martin here? Yes, Martin, there's 7. And he went and he like yes. Do you want to go out? Yes, cool. Let's meet at 8 o'clock at Weikart-Uhr, and that was it. Nobody was late. And in the last 5 or 10 years, this kind of exploded.
Or if somebody was late, you waited 45 minutes. I don't do that shit anymore. I don't know when you were on a date last time.
I can't remember because we in the Austria we're always very on time.
Yes,
this kind of joke, when I tell this kind of joke, the audience is in stitches. It's a stupid joke because there have been gazillions of comics who make this joke.
It's an easy one, sure.
Are punctual, but works. But we were quite punctual, so I didn't wait 45 minutes. But I think you should wait because we had no means of communication. Nowadays, after 3 minutes, it's like.
But then we do agree it's a two-edged sword because it's very useful to have you on Messenger and see you reply in 3 hours of time, or at 15 minutes if you happen to be available. But the problem is when it's very hard to say how much time do you actually want to focus on that. And when I wrote the album that I wrote for the Minotaur project that came out in 2013, I switched off my phone for 2 weeks and it was done. I wasn't interested in anybody dying. I wasn't interested in anybody getting sick. If you needed my help,
switched off for the writing process. Yeah, or afterwards. Okay.
Oh, that was the end of the production. So I had a couple songs together, but I wanted to have an album ready by the end of what I wanted.
So you switched off for work purposes. So you focus exclusively.
Well, it wasn't really work because I didn't earn money with it. So but in that regard, that's my problem with creativity, and that's why I was hesitant to accept the idea that you had that let's listen to music that you can get to it because it gets into my mind, and next time, maybe a month from now, accidentally I'm going to compose that because I don't think of it, but it's a harmony that I liked or a progression of chords that I liked, and it's or just a melody, a part of a melody, and if it's longer than 7 seconds, then you can be plagiarized for it, and we can still do that, but I have to be conscious about these kind of listening sessions because if you're when I'm creating something and in the middle of it, there's a notification that, somebody asks you a question about, is there any possibility that your music is on Spotify? And I'm not fucking paying for Spotify. So if you want to download it, you can download it for fucking free. I don't care about the rest. I love people who write to me 10 years after having put anything online. It's like, I listen to your music and I love that. But should I pay for it? No. And you shouldn't either. It's free of charge, but then sort it out yourself. I mean, I have done the hard work. I have composed it. So how about you can copy it on your phone and then you do whatever the fuck you want with it. And then, that happened once, twice, 5 times, 15 times. And I was like, this is, and then going back to the computer and it's just, I don't want to do that. That's the same reason why I have my phone behind me while I'm talking to you. This 2 hours, 3 hours that we talk through, this is dedicated to you. After that, I'm going to check it, and I'm told everybody that, podcast time, so I'm not here. If you need me, bad luck, tough shit, you will find somebody else. And if it cannot wait 24 hours, I shouldn't be probably the person to call, because it is what it is. Look, we should close this. We should close this down, but we should close this down in a normal manner. So, where can we find your let's make some advertisements for Strafunkel. I don't know how to pronounce that, but Strafunkel sounds good to my ears.
Yeah, it sounds like Straf. No, it's I would pronounce it Strafunkel.
Strafunkel,
and it's on Facebook.
I'll put them.
Yeah, like STRAFUNKE. Nobody got that. But it's on Facebook, and starting in the fall, we are back with regular comedy shows.
Will we have another open mic in August? That's all the question.
No, in August
it didn't work out.
I'll be away for 1 week, and but maybe the first, maybe I do the first show as an open mic in September.
Okay, I'll bring my students
from the feeling nobody's here anyway, so.
Yeah, August is weird in Strasbourg. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
We had 3.5 hours. That's yes. gotta be a reasonable amount of time.
I think so.
I'll put this up towards the end of the weekend. Well, thank you for coming. And then
thank you very much.
Let's get your bike and just fuck off of this room because it's very hot here.